The following program presents principles designed to promote good health and is not intended to take the place of personalized professional care. The opinions and ideas expressed are those of the speaker. Viewers are encouraged to draw their own conclusions about the information presented.
Hello and welcome to Health for a Lifetime. I'm your host, Don McIntosh. We're glad that you joined us today, and we're glad you're watching 3ABN. We think that you'll grow spiritually and hopefully you'll live longer. And that's what we're going to talk about today, longevity. And to talk with us about this important subject is someone who has lived a number of years, but he still looks young, which is also good. Dr. George Guthrie, we're glad that you're here with us today. And you are a physician. You've been a physician for, man, it only looks probably maybe 5-10 years, but you've really been practicing for almost 25 years.
That's right.
And you're now at the Lifestyle Center of America in southern Oklahoma. And there you treat all kinds of diseases from a lifestyle perspective. Isn't that right?
That's right. We try to help people optimize their lifestyle so they minimize their need of physicians and medications.
Boy, I'm sure the drug companies love you, and
they don't visit us anymore, Don.
They don't visit it. Well, look, you have a great web page. I've been to it there, Lifestyle Center of America, and it goes through the different programs and different things that you offer there. And many times people come there to you because they're in an acute disease stage. You know, they realize they're going the wrong way, and you help them reverse that.
Right.
But wouldn't it be better if they came and just learned how to do things so they could prevent the things they're dealing with?
Generally, to spend that much time and that much money, there needs to be a crisis. Sometimes what we do is called by people preventive medicine, but it's no more preventive medicine than what the cardiologist does when he puts in a stent, for example. We're really doing lifestyle intervention on disease.
But this is your chance, as we talk today, about how people can take a perspective right now. Maybe, I don't care what age you are watching, you can learn from today how to live, hopefully, for a long time.
Living long and healthfully is really what prevention is all about, isn't it?
That's right. Now, what is it, we talk about life expectancy, in other words, how long we expect to live, maybe. What is it that really impacts that?
Really, our lifestyle affects it, but for us to understand that is a bit of a challenge. You see, as science has tried to approach how to live a long time, now I know when preachers come to living a long time, it's a little different tack. We talk about eternal life.
Right.
But scientists are working on extending really life and the quality of life here on this planet. And as a Christian, I like to think of that as extending my opportunity for service, the joy of service. And it's just part of eternal life, of course. But again, as the scientists try to delve into this whole field, they've got some dilemmas, especially studying in human beings, because they're human beings too. For example, a young fella at 18 decides, I'm going to study how to live a long time. So he goes to school, studies, he's a bright fella, he's got his PhD by age 30, gets a couple of research projects under his belt, and finally gets the big one at age 35. To study aging, to do it right, he's got to start prenatally, before birth.
And he's already like 35 years
And he's
into
already
it.
35. You see, the problem is he's going to die before his subjects do. So it's a little harder for us to study our own species, and we've had to depend often on what we can learn from other species.
So how have they gone about it? They look at how does science go about studying aging then, since they're going to die?
Well, in humans, the first thing we can do is observe, right? And so you look around and you say, okay, around the world, who lives a long time? And we have the Vilcabambians in Ecuadorial Andes. We've got the Georgians from the Caucasus Mountains. We've got
Okinawans.
Well, Okinawans are actually the longest living people today, as far as a culture. So we look at these populations and we say, what is it about their life that's different than everybody else? Maybe that has something to do with them living longer. And as we look at them, for example, in a group of Hunza, they looked at their cholesterols. They're like between 120 and 150, somewhere along in there. Really lower cholesterol levels on average. People are more active. They eat fewer calories. So we can learn some things from looking at people who have lived a long time, but it's not considered real good science. We haven't proved anything. We've simply observed some things.
Okay. So it sounds like diet has something to do with it, since you mentioned cholesterol levels.
Sure, sure. Of course, diet is associated with some diseases. Diseases tend to end our lives, so, right.
Now, your message today is probably going to be, people are going to think twice before jumping on the bandwagon, but you're going to be talking about caloric restriction as it relates to longevity.
That's where science has ended up pointing their finger. It's really a rather interesting topic as we kind of move towards an understanding. As scientists have moved toward trying to understand how this works in humans, one of the things they did was a very large study in Alameda County in California, just north of the Golden Gate Bridge, one of the wealthiest counties in the country. They got a whole group of elderly folks, 7,000 of them, who were at least 70 years of age, and they followed them from 1965 to 1974. They asked them at the beginning a whole bunch of questions about their lifestyle. Anything they could think of that might make a difference as far as how people, what makes them live longer, what makes people die sooner. Then, over that period of time, they watched the death registry to see who died from what, and then went back and looked at the data.
Okay.
So these are these people's habits. These died sooner, these died later. What can we do as human beings to live longer? So this is a little better than the observation. And we've got several of them here. The first one, I'll bet you're not surprised at. It's don't smoke.
Don't smoke. Oh, that is...
People who don't smoke live longer. Well, of course.
We know that, right?
Smoking leads to cancer, and it puts us at risk for heart disease. So that's obvious, right? Regular exercise.
That doesn't surprise me either.
Really? Regular exercise helps us keep fit, doesn't it? Keep active, and we noticed it in the other populations, those that live a long time. They tend to be active.
So regular exercise. I remember watching a game show once, or maybe it was a talk show, and this guy was on there and he was talking about being 104 years old, and he was running or walking 2 miles a day. And then they interviewed him every year, and then one year he didn't do it, and he wasn't back. He died.
Okay. I guess that makes sense. Exercise does help. Obviously, that was observational, and we'd like a little stronger proof than just the story, but
that was one.
Another one, appropriate weight. I'll bet you're not. If your weight is appropriate, you're not as likely to die sooner. Now, that's not a surprise either, is it?
No. I mean, that's...
What is overweight associated with disease-wise?
Diabetes,
Sure.
Hypertension, heart disease, big ones. Probably stroke.
Arthritis. So having a normal weight is a reasonable finding from this Alameda Health study.
Okay.
Now, the next one is a bit of a surprise. It was to me when I saw it. Okay.
What is it?
Regular breakfast.
Breakfast. What was the association there?
Well, they don't tell us. All they said was people who eat a regular breakfast live longer. Now, I can guess. I think we've got some evidence of possible explanations for that. One of them might be people who eat breakfast tend to eat foods that are protective. For example, more whole grains, more fruit. Another one, people who eat breakfast actually eat fewer calories during the day. People who skip breakfast eat more calories. They kind of get that starved sort of a thing. So eating breakfast tends to decrease number of calories. And I've wondered if a big meal at night doesn't really stress the system. You get all that food coming in. If somebody goes to sleep and just lays there with all that food, doesn't it clog up the system? So one of my, and it's just a theory, is that people who eat breakfast are the ones who haven't eaten a big meal the night before. Because if they eat a big meal the night before, they're not hungry in the morning.
Right.
So maybe it's kind of a secondary marker for a big meal. We don't know. Certainly not from this study. But there's some possibilities.
So regular exercise, weight, breakfast, anything else they found in the Alameda Health Study?
No snacks.
No snacks.
Snacks?
People are sighing out there. They're watching. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Okay, no snacks.
And maybe you've heard it before. I kind of like this little saying, the bigger the snacks, the bigger the slacks. I don't know who originated it, but
Probably
the
true.
snacks that we eat tend to be high in salt and fat or high in sugar and fat. And don't the advertisements say you can't have just one?
And they seem to be right, don't they?
They seem to be right. So for some reason, and it makes sense to me, no snacks is actually tends to make people or allow people to live longer.
Okay, well, let's review what we've seen so far. We'll put it up on a graphic. No smoking. These are the things that were done in this Alameda Health Study. Regular exercise, appropriate weight, regular breakfast, no snacks, and then the one we didn't cover, 7 to 8 hours of sleep a day.
Now, I would rather say night.
Night.
I don't like people to go to sleep during my lectures.
Okay.
So 7 to 8 hours of sleep in a 24-hour period, generally we mean at night, is associated with living longer.
So if we want to live longer, then these are the things we really need to be looking at.
Well, these are lifestyle components that we can do something about to help us live a little longer.
We're talking with Dr. George Guthrie. We're talking about longevity, how you can live a long time. And I think all of us are interested in that. And I think that if we're not, we should be. So when we come back, we're going to look at some groups that actually lived a long time, the Okinawans. And when we come back, we'll look at even more factors that maybe you can incorporate. Join us when we come back.
Have you found yourself wishing that you could shed a few pounds? Have you been on a diet for most of your life, but not found anything that will really keep the weight off? If you've answered yes to any of these questions, then we have a solution for you that works. Dr. Hans Deal and Dr. Eileen Ludington have written a marvelous booklet called Reversing Obesity Naturally, and we'd like to send it to you free of charge. Here's a medically sound approach successfully used by thousands who were able to eat more and lose weight permanently without feeling guilty or hungry through lifestyle medicine. Dr. Deal and Dr. Ludington have been featured on 3ABN, and in this booklet, they present a sensible approach to eating, nutrition, and lifestyle changes that can help you prevent heart disease, diabetes, and even cancer. Call or write today for your free copy of Reversing Obesity Naturally, and you could be on your way to a healthier, happier you. It's absolutely free of charge, so call or write today.
Welcome back. We're glad you've joined us. If you haven't been watching the first half, we'll forgive you, but we'll catch you up a little bit. My name's Don McIntosh, and welcome to Health for a Lifetime. We've been talking about longevity, and we've been talking with Dr. George Guthrie. He's a physician from Southern Oklahoma, and his whole purpose in life is to help people live longer here and hopefully also have everlasting life as they come to know Jesus Christ as their Savior. But let's look a little bit at what we were reviewing or going over just before the break. The Alameda Health Study, Dr. Guthrie, we're looking at,
right.
And it showed that those who live longer don't smoke, they get regular exercise, they have the appropriate weight, they eat breakfast, they don't eat snacks, or very little, and they sleep 7 to 8 hours in a 24-hour period. These are some things.
These are lifestyle choices, lifestyle-related situations that you can do something about.
Right, and at the Lifestyle Center of America there in Oklahoma, you try and remind people of this all the time.
That's right. That's what our work is.
Well, let's look now at this other group you mentioned. I want to come back to you had mentioned the Okinawans.
We had started out saying it is difficult for human beings to study human beings getting older.
Right, because they die.
And so we can look at older folks. We can do it in a kind of an observational sort of a way. Then the Alameda Health Study was another way to do it. And now another study that's actually ongoing, and it's designed in such a way that it outlives any investigator.
So in other words, they hand it on to the next.
Hand it on to the next generation. Is a look at the population in this world that lives the longest. The people who live on the island of Okinawa, Japanese island, small, relatively poor folks, south of Japan, have a life expectancy longer than anyone else in the world.
I heard that Seventh-day Adventists in California did.
Well, I'm sorry, they're not a country.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But as far as looking at countries, so we
Okay.
have, their life expectancy is about 81 years of age. So that's quite impressive.
81 years of age, yeah.
So as we look at what's different about the Okinawans, we begin to learn some interesting things.
Like?
Well, number one, Okinawans eat 40% fewer calories than Americans do.
Oh, so they don't, this is back to this whole idea. A low caloric intake is associated with longevity.
You introduced that concept, caloric restriction. That's correct. They eat 17% fewer calories than the average Japanese.
So even on the other islands, they eat more than they do.
That's right.
Okay.
But the calories they take, while it's low, they have excellent nutrition.
So they're eating less, but it's better.
They're eating fewer calories, but it's better. And they have a rather simple lifestyle. There's a lot of truck farming. People have their own farms. They do their own fishing. They're active. They're preparing their own food. So excellent nutrition, but restricted calories. Why Okinawan children have 36% below the Japanese recommended intake for their children as far as calories are concerned. So they're on the low side.
So they're on a, not a high-protein diet, but a low-protein diet.
Well, we're talking about calories. It's
Okay.
a low-calorie diet.
Low calories.
That's high in nutrient density.
Okay.
And they live longer. It's really an impressive situation.
So the message is move to Okinawa.
Okay. I suppose you don't have to do that to gain the benefit.
But you can maybe put into practice some of the things.
Some of the things we've learned. Now, if we look at what happens in the Okinawan experience, as they have these restricted calories, we find that Okinawan old people are 75% more likely to retain their cognitive ability.
They don't lose their coconut.
They don't lose their coconut. Their mind stays clearer. There's a 75% improved risk that is less likely to get Alzheimer's.
Wow, this should interest a lot of us.
Yes.
Okay.
There are 80% fewer breast and prostate cancers.
That's a
So-
big killer.
so
One
less
out of,
cancer.
what is it? 1 out of every 3 men gets it
Quite a few.
in America?
50% fewer ovarian and colon cancers. And 50% fewer hip fractures.
It sounds like they're on top of everything.
Well, it does. It's interesting. The Okinawans take in, on an average, 500 milligrams of calcium a day.
Wow.
The recommendations for us here in this country for a postmenopausal woman is 12 to 1,500 milligrams. The Okinawans have fewer hip fractures, and they actually take less calcium, which is kind of interesting. I don't know that there's a connection between caloric restriction and the bones, but it may not be all, osteoporosis may not all be a calcium issue.
So they must get their calcium from green leafy vegetables.
That's where the cow gets it.
That's where the cow gets it, okay? So
Interestingly enough, the Okinawans have 80% fewer heart attacks as well.
80%. This is a interesting. Well, let's review those. I mean, we have some graphics to help us review that because people are saying, "I want to be an Okinawan." Let's write them down. 40% fewer calories than Americans, so less is more. 17% fewer calories than the Japanese.
Average,
Caloric intake of Okinawan children is 36% below the Japanese recommended intake, so their total cereal is not the same as the total cereal of the Japanese.
Okay.
And the Okinawans have adequate nutrition, so calorically dense foods.
Not calorically dense, nutritionally dense.
Nutritionally
and
dense.
calorically
Not so dense.
not so dense.
Okay.
A calorically dense food that would be nutritionally poor would be things like French fries, potato chips. I mean, it's the junk food. So very little junk food, a lot of plant food.
Morbidity is minimized, 75% more likely to retain cognitive ability. They don't lose their coconut. 80% fewer breast and prostate cancers. And you said 50% fewer ovarian and colon cancers and 50% fewer fractures of the hip. And the average intake is like 500 milligrams of calcium a day, which is much lower, but they're still doing better in that hip
Yes.
fracture. And then 80% fewer heart attacks. Amazing.
It's a rather interesting experience. Now, I suppose it's time to pull in the information that we have obtained from animal studies.
Okay.
Because it appears that longevity in human beings, as we've kind of pointed out as in the Okinawans as an example, is related to caloric restriction. We have learned that from experience with rats and mice, rodents.
So if you decrease their calories, they live longer.
Yes. You think about it. They take a rat or a mouse, they put it in a cage, they give it a wheel to run on, and they give it food, all the food at once. That's a rather boring sort of a life, I would suppose. I'm trying to put myself in the rat's place. What would I do in a cage? Eat, right?
Eat.
Well, we call that ad libitum. That is, eat all you want.
Ad libitum.
That sounds like
Sounds like the motto of Americans.
So eat what you want. So when you allow mice or rats to eat all they want, they have a certain lifespan. If you calorically restrict them, they actually live longer. I think we have a graphic that kind of shows that from some studies.
Okay, so here it is. Which one's the healthy one?
Well, notice on the top that the green one there is non-caloric restricted. The CR means calorically restricted.
And he lived only, what, 30
and
minutes?
it looks like, it's not minutes, I think it has more to do
Months?
with months. Okay, so with eating all they want, they last, out about 35 months.
And then they eat less.
If they eat 25% less, you can see it extends out closer to 43.
Okay.
55% less, it's getting out above 50. And of course, 65%, about 55. Now, if you go much beyond that, you're talking about malnutrition, and of course, the death rate starts to come sooner. So there is a point beyond which you cannot calorically restrict.
So the solution here to the problem with rats is feed them more.
Oh, you mean as far as to kill the rats because we don't want them?
Right, if you don't want them, you just put more food out in your house. You learn it here on 3ABN.
Maybe it would be better to learn a lesson from the rats.
Okay, learn a lesson from the rats.
And when the rats are in the rat race of life,
okay,
and they're eating, they've got all the food supply that they need, they're very likely to die sooner. Same with us. If we want to live a little longer, it would make sense that we did a little more of the hunt and scratch that the rats do. You know, in the natural world, they don't have all they want. They have to find this seed here, find that seed there, kind of run around till it's a little bit. And I think the natural state is more calorically restricted than the cage-fed.
Okay.
And we were designed to be that way, to be outside, to be working, to
Hunting,
grow
gathering.
our food, hunting, gathering, moving,
growing,
and not eating as many calories as we are now.
So how does it work then? How does this caloric restriction work?
That's a fascinating study, and scientists are beginning to understand it. Let's see if I can put it together in simple language. Many of us have talked about getting vitamin E and vitamin C. We probably are. Many of our listeners are taking it now to try to live longer and put off disease. Antioxidants are supposed to keep down the free radicals.
Those things that would cause cancer.
Well, and even kill cells.
Right.
We think that free radicals have something to do with the normal dying off of cells. Free radicals are very reactive.
Very radical.
Very radical. If they get loose, they damage DNA, RNA, proteins. They damage things in the cells, and when there's enough damage, and even the repair mechanisms and the backup mechanisms are damaged, then the cell dies. We start losing them one at a time, and when we lose too many, we die. I mean, that's kind of the process. So how does caloric restriction
address these things?
Address the whole business of free radicals. How does it decrease free radicals? Well, the answer lies within the mitochondria.
Okay, those are the powerhouses
the
of the
little
cell.
powerhouses inside the cells have within them the mechanism to take the food that we eat and turn it into energy that our cells use. We call it ATP.
Okay.
That process,
right,
each day in each cell makes somewhere between 100,000 and 1 million free radicals.
Woo.
So each cell in your body is making all these free radicals. Some people worry about the free radicals in the air. Let me tell you, there's nothing compared to the free radicals that are made just in normal physiology.
I'm feeling more radical as we talk.
The free radical, the extra electron that's so active, is then passed on through the body. It goes into it's picked up by coenzyme Q10 or vitamin E, glutathione, vitamin C, bioflavonoids, and finally it's dumped in the colon, in the fiber, which is the high fiber diet should be a good dump for those free radicals. So that's the way the body deals with it.
Okay.
Now, it's very interesting. You heard me say somewhere between 100,000 and 1,000,000 per day per cell.
That's a lot.
But think about it. There's a difference of tenfold. If you did something different, you might make 1/10 as many free radicals. If you did something else, you might make 10 times as many. So there's a range.
Okay.
It ends up that when we have too many calories, more than we need, our body gets very inefficient, and it makes many more free radicals.
I see.
When we are calorically restricted, then
makes less.
we make up to 1/10 the number of free radicals. An illustration, on a hot summer afternoon, you grab a big glass of lemonade to quench your thirst and deal with the heat. An hour later, you're hotter than you were before. Why? Because all that energy, your body doesn't know what to do with it. It's trying to turn it into heat. So it didn't really help.
The lemonade would not be as good as water.
Exactly. So caloric restriction helps us live a long time by increasing the efficiency, decreasing the free radicals. And it's true, the antioxidants, especially those that come in plants, can be very helpful in helping us maintain good cell health throughout our body so we can live a long time and enjoy it.
Is it too late to start?
That's an excellent question. Scientists have been trying to answer that question, and I don't know that they have the answer completely. But a few months ago, I ran across an article where they were studying fruit flies.
Okay.
And they found that no matter how late in the fruit fly's life they did the caloric restriction, the fruit flies still lived the same length. So I don't know whether that'll turn over to be same for humans, but it worked for fruit flies, and we're starting there. I don't think it's too late.
Good. Well, if it's good for the fly, it might be good for you and I. Hey, thank you so much, George, for joining us. Dr. Guthrie from the Lifestyle Center of America. Thank you for what you do there. Thank you for what you've done today on the program.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you also for watching us. You might want to contact the Lifestyle Center of America. You just go to your browser, your website. They have a website, and learn more about their programs. If not, you've learned some things today that can help you hopefully live longer, and as you live, enjoy your time with God and with others. Thanks for watching, and may God bless you today.